Listen, didn't you notice I didn't get mad at Banks? You know why? Because we've got the files. Plus the new ones. That fat, phony fart is a dead man. You just don't know it yet. You said you got a connection at one of the papers. Well, it's time to go public and put that podcast in his place. You get my drift?
Welcome back, Hellspawn, to another episode of Spawnography. I'm your host, Pierce Lyden, here with
George Marston.
George. That was a lot of plosives.
Yes, it was. You're going to have a lot of fun editing that.
That's fine. It's not that hard.
No, it just sounds really cool to everyone who gets to hear it.
Yeah. Sorry to all the misophonia? What's that one where people don't like
misophonia?
Misophonia, right? Sorry,
Yeah.
misophonias. Misophoniacs? Misophonians?
I don't know.
We'll never know. George and I are just getting back in the swing of things. I think we mentioned last episode that we've not been recording quite as consistently. It's a beautiful thing about doing a lot of records is that you build up a big buffer. So we're doing that again, but we're just kind of getting back in the flow. We've had a busy summer, so
yeah, I had to move. It took quite a while to move due to circumstances that sucked. So there was a little period there where I didn't have a lot of a setup, but now we're back in the swing of things. So expect the episodes to keep coming exactly at the same pace they've always been coming for you.
Yeah, there's no change for you, the listener, you dear listener.
No.
We do have news from San Diego Comic-Con. As we're recording this, San Diego Comic-Con's about a week ago. And King Spawn.
King freaking Spawn. Pretty cool, actually. I think it's a neat idea to jump like the saga ahead in time to like we've seen the beginning of Spawn. There's the whole it's become a trope of its own at this point to say it's a tired trope to see the origin of a superhero.
Right.
So
this does line up, I think, a lot more with what Todd keeps saying this movie is going to be, right? Which is from the perspective of Twitch, who we know, as long as this stays the case, is Jeremy Renner somehow.
Yeah. Sure. Sure. I guess we'll have to believe that Jeremy Renner could have a hot wife.
Who plays Sam if Sam's in it? Because that's the other thing too. It does feel like they're getting rid of Sam, maybe.
No, I don't want you to say that.
But who?
They're so good as a pair.
I know. They are Sam and Twitch, so it feels weird to get rid of them. One of them.
Yeah.
And also, Twitch doesn't seem like the leader. He's smarter and more capable. But
he's always kind of a straight man to the guy who's calling people a fat phony fart and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know his sexuality, but
I mean, well, yeah, that's fair. He could be bisexual in a straight relationship,
pansexual in a relationship with bread.
Still a bisexual relationship. Yeah, he could. Anything's possible. That's very true. I don't want to downplay that. I don't
want to say that. Switch. That's something else.
That's the other side of their relationship.
Oh boy. But I think for the Twitch role to be a little bit meatier, right? For it to be just Twitch instead of Sam and Twitch makes a little bit of sense, I guess. I don't know. We'll see.
I guess. I mean, I think it makes sense for Twitch of all people to be a POV character, because he's very much often the guy who's wide-eyed, at least in his glasses, in the background, watching everything unfold. So I could see that working. I think you need Sam around though to give him someone to talk to at the very least.
True. Otherwise, it sort of becomes this hard-boiled noir talking to him. It's the problem of Spawn in the early issues that we get where Al doesn't talk to anybody, right? We don't really need that in a movie to have Twitch just not talking to anybody. So I wonder.
Right.
I wonder if the worry though is that, and because in the original Spawn movie we did the sort of goofy side character, to have Sam and Twitch as a duo, maybe it's too reminiscent.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, they're gonna write it how they're gonna write it. Maybe Sam's dead. If it's King Spawn and it's in the future,
True.
maybe Twitch is the only one left.
Yeah,
I
maybe
could
like
see
lost
that.
his partner. Maybe Spawn
I
is
could
somehow
see it.
responsible for that. That could kind of, or like
Or
he
connected.
seemingly responsible.
Yeah, I could see it.
As we discussed a little bit off mic before this, Harvey Firestein for Sam would be
Perfect.
perfect.
He's only like 77 years old or something at this point.
Listen,
That
Robert
would be
Downey Jr. is
perfect.
Doctor Doom, and he's 65.
You said the words. You said the words, the cursed words. Richards.
Here's the thing. I don't think he's Doctor Doom. Going on the record
No,
now. I think he's a Doombot who thinks he's Doctor Doom.
You know what I think? Actually, I think he's going to be Iron Man and someone else is Doctor Doom. No, I do. I think he's going to be Tony Stark alive in the other universe.
Mm.
No, I mean that's maybe too big brained. That's my pet theory of like that's my pet cope of like here's how Bernie can still win. You know?
Listen, I truly do think that there's a different Doctor Doom, that Doctor Doom created Doombots of the Avengers, and that this Doctor Doom is really the Iron Man Doombot that thinks he's the actual Doom.
That would be cool. My baby sister did say when we were talking about it, she said, what if they're recast all the original Avengers as villains? And I thought that's pretty funny.
Would Chris Evans be a good Red Skull?
No, you can't have a good Red Skull. I think that's the thing you can't do. He could just be evil Steve Rogers.
Steve Rogers has never been evil, famously.
That's true. Never once has anything like that ever happened in a comic book.
No. And never once has a comic book about just that had a writer that tried to get me fired. Anyway.
Womp womp.
Today we just got one issue. It's going to be Spawn number 43. It's a little one shot. We're seeing some threads finally pay off a little bit.
Some files pay off. We're going to see, this is maybe the biggest climax yet for the journey and quest of the files that were introduced, 30 issues ago at this point or something?
It's so long. Actually, and we'll get into it, but they reference just like see issue 36. And I was like, I think that's the closest gap between the issue we're reading and the editor's notes, like referencing a past thing.
Files, yeah.
Like, because usually it's like see issue 5, because we're still doing Billy Kincaid shit also.
Yeah.
In here. Let me get the credits out of the way. And then we can just get into it. So this is Spawn number 43. Image Comics presents somehow a title that hasn't been used yet, Evil. Story by Todd McFarlane, pencils by Greg Capullo, inks by Todd McFarlane, copy editor and letters by Tom Warzikowski, color by Brian Haberlin, Dan Kemp. A special thanks to Danny Miki, which I have to imagine is on the inking side, because I don't know.
No, probably on the inking side.
Yeah, I don't know Miki. It's just weirdly laid out, so it's like right after color, and there's no space. And dedicated to Bernie Wrightson.
Oh, hell yeah.
And
I could see why.
Yeah. All of Spawn, and Bernie Wrightson, one of the all-time greats.
Some cool horror sequences in this issue in particular, though.
Yeah. Which we'll get into the coloring of them, but it's not our usual crew. But Steve Oliff and Ole Optics, and I think it kind of shows. But this also does have a summary. that catches you up, I guess, on exactly what the fuck is happening with Files, but also just recaps exactly what happened in the last issue with Pat Shaughnessy, the kid who loves Spawn,
The kid who loves
aka
Spawn.
the Terrorizer.
That's right.
So we're going to open this issue with 6 panels of Sam getting ready for work at 5:51 in the morning, which is, I'm surprised he even wakes up that early.
We know it's Sam because he's smoking a cigarette in the shower or while he's shaving.
Yeah.
Maybe all three at once, which, to be fair, cigarette while shaving could be literally almost anyone up until about 1998.
It's kind of like a broken cigarette, too. So, for all we know, this is Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop.
That's right. Well, and he's also, we see him dunking his donut in his coffee. Delicious, also Dunkin' Donuts.
What do you think of the rendering of that donut?
You know, I think it's actually sublime. I think that it captures a feeling of lifelikeliness beyond measure.
Yeah, some good toilet paper acting in this quick scene too.
It is actually pretty good storytelling.
Yeah, this is fun.
And that is some great storytelling with the TP. Not a surprise that Sam's in a hurry with that.
Yeah, it says that
given,
he's late.
The cigarettes and coffee he's having for breakfast.
Yep.
And yeah, he's late. He's late, presumably to meet Twitch, which honestly, this is extremely too relatable for me. I have a pathological inability to be on time for anything. It's called dyscalculia.
I don't see. You keep blaming that, and I'm beginning to think that you don't know what that means.
I don't know what time means.
Well, okay. Well, this record specifically being an example of that. No, it was fine. We were in constant contact.
I was here early.
That's good. You did sign on before I did. Anyway, Twitch is waiting outside. Here's one thing that we haven't talked about, and it's Twitch's choice of mustache, because there's one other man at this point in time who has this mustache. Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan. Well, his, to be fair, goes all the way across his lip. He just has a long, thin kind of lip. You know what?
It gets rendered pretty weirdly sometimes.
It does. It looks very push broom. I would say, to my eye, he's supposed to look like a kind of very caricatured version of maybe Commissioner Gordon.
True.
But he does. Sometimes it seems like he cuts it a little closer in.
Yeah, exactly. I will say though that like we let Michael Jordan off the hook for that one, right?
Yeah, I guess no one talks about the crimes of Michael Jordan.
Well, he didn't really have crimes. He was just addicted to gambling.
Great baseball player.
Yeah, but but wait, I have a no prize explanation for why Twitch is allowed to have this mustache when it is rendered shortly.
Okay.
Which is that you can bring that mustache back. You can be in commercials even for like Hanes or whatever Michael Jordan was in commercials for besides his own shoes. If you're just exceptionally good at something, like Michael Jordan was so good at basketball that we were like, you know what? That mustache is okay.
But Twitch is really, his exceptionality is with a gun. And that feels politically a little different than shooting a gun than shooting a basketball.
I mean,
yeah, but
they're both good at shooting, is what we're saying.
I think the no prize explanation is just that he's a fucking cop.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, sorry, this is something I thought about while reading this comic. I had to share it with you and with you, the listener.
Yes. The listener. Yeah, he tells Twitch that he's sorry, I was working on a big case. You know how it can be. I had to finish a very crucial phone call. Does that mean to anybody? That's what I'm going to say next time I'm late for anything. Sorry, I was working on a big case.
By big case, he just means shit, right?
I guess that's not what I. For the record, that is not what I'll mean. In fact, what I'll say instead is, I'm working on a big scoop at the moment. My editor will be like, "Oh, what is it?" And I'll be like, "Got to see if it pans out." The opinions and views of this podcast are not representative of the views of my employer.
That just sounds like you were about to like clean the cat box.
Someday maybe there'll be cats in my house again. Today my girlfriend and my roommate really want them, but we'll see.
You gotta take that one day at a time.
Yeah.
You know, shout out to the best.
Oh yeah, of course. My favorites. All right. So yeah, also my favorite, Dunkin' Donuts, which he is canonically eating as he's zipping his shirt through his fly. Average Dunkin' Donuts eater. I love Dunkin' Donuts.
Big fan. America runs on Dunkin'. I had Dunkin' Donuts this morning, and I won a 10K.
Oh hell yeah! Wow, big combo.
Yeah.
They recently, I will say, changed how they do their jelly donuts, and the jelly donuts are no longer good.
Well, Dunkin' Donuts canceled.
Which is a shame. R.I.P. Chocolate glazed, still the best.
Chocolate is pretty good.
Glazed chocolate? I don't know. Those are two different donuts.
Are they?
Yeah.
No, chocolate frosted.
One of them. No, there's one of them is chocolate glazed. The other one is glazed chocolate on the menu. It's a whole thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter because I guess Sam would be eating both of them at this point. But he says tomorrow I'll be on time for sure. And we all know that's a lie. I know that's a lie. It will forever be a lie. I'm actually usually on time for work, so it's fine.
Yeah, so we're getting right into what the files are all about. Political, basically Twitch has checked the routes of all the couriers who had receipts in the new file. Fairly obvious the chief was receiving kickbacks and bribes early in his career. It was all being laundered through an account at Chase Manhattan Bank. Cash came from certain political operatives intent on having unobstructed paths before them. The thing about this is then it should have been hidden better, right?
Well, I think that's the thing, is that Spawn got a lot of these files from the CIA, from their files, in their secure place. So nobody but someone like a Hellspawn could ever break into such a place and steal such files.
Question: do you think that Spawn can just conjure files that say whatever he wants?
I think anybody can conjure files that just say whatever they want.
Well, only if they're Hellspawn.
Well, okay,
but I mean, he
enough.
could literally conjure them.
Oh, like he does Sweetberry Wine. Yeah, I think he could Sweetberry Wine up some files.
Sometimes Spawn's powers just seem like wishes.
Yeah. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, that's true. It's not even that incomparable because of the power meter that sometimes comes and goes.
It's just the amount of wish power he's got.
Yeah, it really is. Wow.
We're cracking the case. Todd, listen, if this script doesn't work out, call us.
Yeah. We'll make something incredibly problematic.
So anyway, these two New York City cops, they ain't too smart. It's a Strokes reference. But they are going to try to sue or get City Hall and the CIA in trouble, as well as
they're going to try and contact the journalists. The journalism.
Yeah, they're
going to go. They're going to try to do a journalism because the internal affairs, as Chief Banks will soon mention, internal affairs
has been investigated.
Already passed on the case, investigated it, and they killed the case. Is what we learn here.
Yeah. I will say that Greg Capullo read this script and was like, fucking A, what am I going to do for these pages? I like his I actually like his layouts. They're a lot, because Spawn's not in a lot of these scenes, the layouts are a little bit more traditional, and he's kind of taken some interesting angles and stuff to be able to add some dynamism to the pages.
Well, it also has a little bit of the visual language of a cop show with it, which is obviously intentional to reflect that kind of close-ups on the eyes as they're driving and stuff like that. It's good storytelling. I enjoy it, actually. I think that's why the Greg Capullo issues are so good a lot of the time, is because he can take a page like this that's just Sam and Twitch talking to each other and make it something that is at least fluid to read, even when it's a talking head kind of situation.
Sure.
That's really one of the marks of a great artist.
True. So they try to pull into their parking spot, or into the parking lot rather, and they find out that their parking privileges have been revoked, and they have to park. They can park anywhere else. And
yeah, the two cops that are guarding the gate to the police parking lot give them a real hard time about it, and you kind of get the impression, oh, they're getting screwed over now because of how they gave the files to Internal Affairs.
And we find that out exactly in a moment, because we'll see Chief Banks, and he's like, listen, it's been long enough since the investigation. This won't seem like punishment. I can kind of make up whatever I want because I'm in charge. And I like Twitch kind of standing up to Chief Banks here. I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, Chief Banks says, like, I promised that your time would come. What do you have to say? And he says, bam, you're dead. And he kind of finger guns him.
Yeah.
You're going down, but you're coming. Or we're going down, but you're coming with us.
I like on the page before that, sorry to back up slightly, that cartoon of Sam, the drawing of Sam on the top left panel of the page where they're like going into their office and the janitor is in there. Really like that drawing. It's very fun. It's almost kind of very Sergio Aragonés to me.
Yeah, totally.
I like to go there and he's like, what are you doing with my files? So yeah, then Chief Banks is like, and do whatever I frickin' want with your files because I'm your frickin' boss and you're frickin' fired. How about that? So yeah, Twitch says, bam, you're dead. We're going down. You're coming with us. Then they adjourn to a diner where, again, we get some great cartooning from Greg Capullo of Sam.
Some great cartooning, but like, I don't love the bit. I'm a little over it.
That's true. No, we've said before that it's kind of tired. The whole Sam eats all the time thing kind of gets tired. Honestly, I think part of the reason, and I was just thinking about this, is because it gives them something to do while they're talking other than just standing there or like looking at a file or something.
I think Sam stress eats.
Yes, and that's also relatable to me. As is Twitch being like, oh, I'm too stressed out to eat. That's also extremely relatable. Both relatable perspectives, you know, but at the same time, Sam is presented as kind of a cartoon for being a fat person, and that's not particularly kind. I am not a fan of that aspect of it. I think that Tom Orzechowski's lettering on the panel where he's eating is a great representation of like someone eating and talking, but I agree with what you're pointing out. It is a little tired that all he does is kind of be gross and eat.
Yeah, and in an issue where we have to spend a lot of time with them, it, I guess, is a little less grating because we see him not doing this, but I don't know.
We also see a lot of him doing it.
Right. That was exactly, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a stereotype.
Here's the thing.
In some ways, I think Todd McFarlane is seeing it as an archetype, but it's more of a stereotype.
Yeah. Here's the thing that doesn't work for me. It's the coloring.
Yeah.
The coloring, I think Haberlin and co, there's the Chief Banks panel where he's got, I guess, the fire of the sun behind him. Like, what is happening there?
It could be a sunset. I mean, I've seen sunsets that look like that.
I mean, I guess it's the sun. Well, it has to be a sunrise, right? They're just getting to work.
Yeah, that's fair. That's true. But
also,
it is a strange coloring choice.
It's a really weird,
because it made me think sunset at the wrong time of day.
And then also, too, that would then mean that he's extremely backlit. If there's no light in the room, there's just like a lot of stuff that doesn't really make sense.
Is kind of backlit, but it's also this pickle and mustard kind of color scheme across the two pages, which I kind of don't hate.
Yeah,
but it does play into Sam spitting relish and mustard onto Twitch's face.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't love the blues and greens. I think it just doesn't work for me. Weirdly, I think the panel that looks the best, the two panels that look the best are the Sam kind of spitting food out of his mouth one in terms of coloring,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
twitch with his finger gun panel.
Yeah. Bam, you're dead. That one's just really striking, and it makes sense, if not as a literal representation of the lighting, then as a highlight of the situation, which I can also appreciate in comic storytelling.
Yeah. But we're gonna move. We haven't seen our favorite Hellspawn in a while, and so we're sort of gonna see him.
We're gonna get one cool look at him. These panels are very Universal monster movie to me. They're very like chiaroscuro with those like, well, I guess not quite as striking as that, but like there's these big black shapes backlit by the gray tones. They look like the backgrounds of like the old Frankenstein movies where like it's got the painted sky and stuff like that. I think it looks cool. This is where the coloring works for me because we also get that really hot green of Spawn's eye,
Yeah.
the bright red of his cape.
I was gonna say I think that green that we see a little bit earlier is meant to be a transition color to like get us there, sort of. But
it does makes me feel more like I'm in a subway,
yeah,
which I kind of am in that panel
yeah,
where Sam's eating a huge hoagie. But yeah, so it's nightfall. All the creatures of night are convening on this tree where Spawn is laying after he was blasted from the hillside. His body parts were collected by his costume because he was vivisected by the curse. His costume brought his body all back together, and it's kind of still piecing himself back together. He's very weak. And we learn here that the creatures of the night, the beetles and insects and the worms and the wolves and all kinds of nocturnal creatures, are nocturnal because they are elementally evil, biblically evil. And that, therefore, is what nourishes the Hellspawn when his body is deteriorated and it needs to regrow. So all of these evil weevil beetles and their worms and the creatures of darkness are converging on Spawn.
yeah.
And it's pretty sick. It leads to this panel later on, but it's pretty cool, these panels, but the next couple panels just relay a story of what Al is experiencing.
Yeah.
Which is...
I do think that this whole section, before we move forward, I think that this whole section is also Capullo's about, we're not about to, but we are going to get to Maggot Face Spawn. That's going to be sort of his next iteration, and the kind of evil of worms and stuff like that. And it's like that worms are, because they are only in darkness, right? They are not.
It quotes a Bible passage that says, whatever is in...
That's the thing I was just going to say. It says, "For it is written, God shed his light on earth in the name of goodness, and those who dare shun it shall forever remain stained in evil." Oh,
that's right. For it is written, but that's not from the Bible.
That's not from anything. It is from this comic book. So, for it is written...
Well, it's written here. Right there, Pierce.
Which I like that...
Could also be written in like the Hellspawn texts.
That's true. It doesn't say where it's written. I think we're to assume
we've seen a lot of
that it's the Bible.
Yeah, but we've seen a lot of those texts in like Angela and stuff like that, where it's written from like the manual of a Hellspawn thing, that kind of thing.
Do you think that there's like a Bible, like that there's like the NIV version, the King James? Is there a King Spawn version?
Oh, hell yeah, the King Spawn Bible. Todd, you're missing a great merchandising opportunity to really pull something incredible off here.
I guess we
call us up.
We do reference the Bible in every issue, so
yeah, on some level, the things that are said in the Bible or said about the Bible.
Well, we just kind of close every episode out with "For Todd So Loved the World."
Oh, that's true. That is true, and that is from
That's from the King Spawn version.
That's from the King Spawn Bible. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Oh, now it should just be the Bible, but you just Control F God with Todd.
Yeah,
and then after that, I don't know.
We'll figure it out along the way. That's what the Christians have been doing for quite a long time.
Yeah. So
that's honestly kind of what Todd's doing with Spawn.
Sure.
Still figuring a lot of it out along the way. I will say his prose in this, where he gets to like talking about the darkness and evil and shit, pretty fun to read. It has that nice horror comic quality to it, almost like an EC comic script. He's getting a little better at that. Where it kind of drags for me is when we get into the next 2-page sequence where we see that Al, inside of Al are two wolves. One of them is powering up his evil darkness, and the other one is apparently dreaming
About Wanda.
of about banging his ex-wife.
My big question is, what the hell happened to this dog? Because when Todd drew this dog, it looked like it had lived some lives. When Greg Capullo draws this dog, it's actually pretty cute.
Some dogs just look old. Some puppies, like those little terrier puppies, they go from looking like they're like their little babies to like their old grandpas in just a few years.
That's a good point.
So, shout out to terriers. God loves a terrier.
God loves a terrier.
That's right. But this whole thing, again, we're getting back to like anecdote that feels like it could be from Todd's life, where
it must be, right?
And I guess, but they always end in like, and then we banged for 1,000 hours.
Which
this one's no exception.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, maybe it's true, maybe I'm not trying to make any inferences about the Todd father's sex life then or now. I do think it is the kind of anecdote that like Spawn loves to tell about himself, where he does something like, okay, it's Wanda's birthday. He comes home and she thinks they're going to go out. She's all dressed up, and he does a fake out where he says, "Oh, I got to go back to work." But then he's in the shower getting dressed up in his tux.
He's actually at the neighbors. So they're in on it.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Here's the thing. This is 100% the story that you tell when you renew your vows at your like 25th anniversary party.
Oh yeah, absolutely it is. But you leave out the part where it's like, and then we fucked the night away.
I think you leave that in.
You maybe you do. I don't know what it's like to do that. So maybe you're at the point in your life and relationship where you just say to all your loved ones and perhaps coworkers, then we banged all night.
So we move on to Sam and Twitch. They're bringing their files to that journalist, and they kind of have to pressure him into even taking on the story, because he's like, I don't want to get involved with the CIA. And
yeah, he even says like, if you wind up with the CIA, if you mess with the CIA, you wind up dead, is basically the inference he makes.
Right. Which probably sure. Yeah. And he decides they make a crack about like the New York Post and somebody being hungry at the New York Post to take it, which is funny. Yeah. New York Post sucks. And he eventually takes it. And I like Twitch's line, "I've been afraid a few times in my life too. Thank you for your time." I don't know. Twitch is a good guy.
Yeah. Oh, somewhere in here, someone was named Salicrup.
We're about to get there. That's the editor. The editor's name is Salicrup.
That's the editor. That's right. I knew it was connected to the newspaper guy. So anyway, yeah, the newspaper guy says he'll do his best to break the story, even though it's a pretty dangerous beat to walk. And they're like, well, that's all we ask. Basically, Twitch makes him feel like a coward. And he's like, okay.
In like fine. A kind way. Yeah. At least.
Sort of, yeah. He basically like guilts him into it. We catch back up with Spawn, who is now being reborn in the night. This splash page of Spawn here,
pretty cool,
rules, with like the bear and the owl. There was an action figure, I think it was the 3rd generation iteration of the main Spawn figure, that came with like an owl and a bat that you could perch on him. I still have that figure somewhere.
Hell yeah.
His cape would like automatically unfurl. It was all ragged. Pretty hot item. And it definitely took some inspiration from
the other
this.
Thing,
his eyes would light up.
The thing about this page is that it should have been the cover. The cover looks like a rush job comparatively.
Yeah, but this is the only shot of Spawn we really get in the issue. So I'm glad that it kind of rocks hard.
True. Yeah, we get all these like red-eyed animals, and evil is ascendant. And they come Hell's
Hell's
children
children.
ready to give, awaiting its signal. Then they hear it, the heart of darkness beating anew. Cool.
You know what it reminds me of is Dracula when he says, like, listen to the children of the night, such sweet music they make.
Yeah. And I'm sure that, I mean, Todd's never read Dracula, but
But he's probably seen the movie.
yeah, exactly. So it works. And I guess at this point it would be Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, he could have seen that by now.
He definitely would have.
Pretty cool.
Cool armor.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
So we head over to the Daily Tribune, and the reporter says to Mr. Salicrup, his editor.
By the way, editor Jim Salicrup, Marvel editor, notable for editing Craven's Last Hunt, among other big stories, particularly at Spider-Man.
Yeah. Just another instance of Todd saying, hey, comics history is cool.
Yeah.
And at the same time that the story is being delivered, we're finding out that it's going through a bunch of it's been leaked. And it's going.
The editor says, let me fact check this.
Yeah.
And he calls somebody who calls somebody who calls somebody, and it goes all the way up the chain to Jason Wynn.
Who's just like, cool, we're going to turn this around on Chief Banks. Fuck that guy. And that's what happens. 2 more days pass, and reality begins to sink in for Chief Banks. Everything is getting pinned on him, and there's really nothing he can say about it. He is the low man on the totem pole, and he really did think that he was going to be protected by Jason Wynn.
Yeah, he's basically the fall guy. He's the patsy for the whole thing. They're going to pin all the connection between like the payments to Billy Kincaid and the senator all on him. They're going to erase the CIA connection by denying it all. I like this newspaper here that says kid killer linked to police chief, with the portrait of Billy Kincaid being the drawing of him from that opening page, which just goes to show you that I guess they have access to these comics in this universe, which makes everything even more bizarre. No, I mean, that's clearly just reusing that image for that, but it's it's an interesting choice of image. So real quick, I just want to throw in, for the rest of Chief Banks' story, I'm just going to give a quick content warning here for self-harm and I guess suicide.
Yeah. I mean, by us saying that, you can kind of assume what happens to Chief Banks at this point.
Yeah, sorry for the spoiler, but I feel like the content warning is important.
We didn't do
We're
it
not
at the
going to
top.
dig into it. It's very briefly, but now if you are sensitive to discussing those things and those kind of issues, it's coming up, and
skip ahead 5 minutes, you'll be okay, but we won't even talk about it that long.
So basically, Chief Banks is learning that he's all alone. We're learning that the media is kind of swallowing the story about Chief Banks, and in some ways, like, kind of questioning the connections with Billy Kincaid. The only one who's fully turning it into a conspiracy, and in some ways kind of the wrong one, is, of course, our reactionary guy, who is now on KTIF.
Yeah.
So
I do want to say I really love the panel of Chief Banks, like, on his knees in his office, because
that whole page is pretty good.
Yeah, it echoes his, like, he's becoming overwhelmed by the news of what he's been accused of, and he knows what has happened, but now it's being pinned on him, and he's like,
he's trying to call Jason Wynn to get him to go away, and he won't take his calls. I love that his desk is just overrun with files now.
So many files.
Files that are now worthless to him. He's got all the files, all the power in the world, but it does him no good. And I mean, that is kind of a direct metaphor at this point.
Yeah.
Especially right here.
And also, too, when this panel where he's on his knees with the big windows just echoes Jason Wynn's window in an interesting and fun way, but it's like not as grandiose and like cool. It is like weak, and I just think it's
we got another close up on a big ashy cig here.
Yeah,
this is about the end of the time when smoking was really cool.
What are you talking about? It's still cool.
Still kind of cool. But when it was cool in the media, now
yeah, that's true.
It's not cool for little kids to do.
Well, it's still cool if a little kid does it.
God, that's true. The views in this podcast do not reflect the views of my employer. But this is when they kind of said no to Joe Camel. You can't be cool to kids anymore.
Because your nose
You
looks like
can't
a
give
dick.
you can't give your nephew Camel bucks
Camel Cash.
and let Camel Cash, thank you, and let them buy a big camel jacket or something that they try to wear to school. All right.
So with the news that that has come out, Chief Banks is being they're trying to meet him in his office and, you know, open up, Banks, you got nowhere to go.
They want to question him. They say he's not even under arrest. He's just wanted for questioning.
Yeah. And as we alluded to earlier, we get a final page that says, "Blam, another black rose blooms in hell tonight."
I mean, that's a sick fucking closing line for
cool.
like this story.
Pretty cool.
Another black rose. If I had read this issue when I was a teenager, I would have like tried to write a song like that. Like, yeah, hell yeah.
Another black rose blooms in hell tonight.
And to the credit of the creators, this is rendered fairly tastefully in the sense that like we don't get like his splayed body or anything like that. There's a lead up of him going into his desk. We see what he's reaching for. Cut to black, and the weight of it is on Tom Warzakowski and a little spatter of blood. Pretty effective.
It works. You get exactly what's going on there, and you kind of don't need to dig into it more.
Nope.
Yeah, so that's Spawn number 43. We're going to lead into like a longer arc after this, so it won't be the next episode of Spawnography won't be just one issue. Right. I can get into some back matter here. I'll give you the Spawn number 44 sort of marketing paragraph that we get in the back matter here. And it says, Spawn number 44, the intro of a new angel, Tiffany. She's got an attitude and seeks nothing but personal gain. Being devoted to heaven, she has traveled to Earth to seek revenge on Angela and Spawn for mixing the elements of heaven and hell. McFarlane, Daniel, Conrad.
She was incredibly popular in Canada. Now she's trying it in the USA.
What's really funny about this is we're getting, well, first of all, seeking revenge on Angela and Spawn for mixing the elements of heaven and hell is a very funny way to say that they fucked. But also,
yes, they did. They connected intimately.
But also, George, I don't know how caught up on current Spawn you are, but there's a red-haired lady who popped up who has not lost her powers, and Spawn's like, what the hell, how do you still have your powers? And she's like, I don't know, my mom and my dad are from both each side of the tracks.
Hell yeah,
so
that rules.
It's
I want them to make that cool.
It's been insinuated that she is Spawn and Angela's daughter.
But I want to see that like combo of Spawn and Angela, like that Spangela costume. That'd be sick. That'd be dope. It just in this minute occurred to me though that Todd McFarlane is Canadian, and Tiffany was a massively popular Canadian pop star.
That's very true.
And he probably did just take that name straight from Tiffany Darwish is her last name.
You know,
which you can't. It's just a first name, so that's fine. But none and nevertheless, it's right there. She's blonde though, and Tiffany did have red. Or Tiffany, the singer, has red hair. Shout out to Tiffany's rendition of "Running Up That Hill" by Kate Bush. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Better than you'd expect.
The rest of the back matter is mostly people complaining about the bi-weeklies, and it's Todd just being like, listen, I'm not doing this forever. I'm just doing it to get to number 50. Number 50 is going to be double-sized. I'm drawing one of the stories in it, so grow up. And then people complaining about how Ninja Spawn has a shoelace face, and Todd just being like, I don't know, it looked better with that, so I kept it.
Yeah, no, I have that figure, and it looks sick. The mask is a rubber mask, and you can pull it off to see his face, and it's a shoelace face, and it looks rad.
Yeah, because shoelace face is objectively, I think, the best face for Spawn.
And I guess that they're saying that a Spawn from another era wouldn't have that, but whatever. That's not what that is, I guess, and I don't care. It's cool. I never once thought about that or would have as a kid. That rules that he has this. I'm going on record. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's cooler.
There's a kid from Australia who asks a couple questions. One, have you approached Danny DeVito about portraying Clown in film? He was born to play the part. What on earth has Tremor been up to since number 25? Will we see him again, or is Cygor the only heroic cyborg on the block? And 3, how is Death Knell different from She-Spawn? Which has to be a toy reference, because we haven't gotten either of those.
I don't know. Who knows?
So
we care because we are the hosts of
right, and we have to talk about this stuff. So and he also talks about like plot holes and like stuff. It's typical like teenage kid shit where you're just like, this is a plot hole, and it's like, no, it's just a story I haven't told yet, so grow up.
Yeah.
And that's basically what Todd says. Is like,
fair enough.
You know, I'm dangling plot threads here because I'm going to get to it. So he says, it's actually just my weakness in not getting to the point quickly enough, which is true. For instance, I still have plots dangling in the book, such as Jason Wynn and Clown in cahoots, Terry Fitzgerald trying to find out why he was framed for murder, Cygor and his reasons for heading to New York, and I've just recently concluded Sam and Twitch's dilemma with Chief Banks. What I intend to do in the future is stay with one of those plots for a few issues until some semblance of closure is given to it, then move on to the next plot. If nothing else, I've given myself a couple years worth of stories to work with. I also think Danny DeVito would make a perfect Clown. When the time comes, the offer will be made. Whether or not it's accepted is an entirely different matter.
And we all know it went to the legend, John Leguizamo. Also want to say Todd claiming that he's going to be wrapping up plot lines in a couple issues there. Sounds a lot like Sam claiming he's going to be to work on time the next morning. No, the next one's going to be a quick arc. It'll wrap up in 4 issues, not 47.
Yeah, it's art imitates life.
You know what?
Art imitates life.
Hey, I'm just identifying with it. I'm identifying with that predicament.
I feel that. George, this has been a speedy one for us because we're already done with the issue. There's no back matter of note, I'd say. What'd you think of this one?
I liked that we finally closed off the plot line of the Files in some way for now. Whether Files continue to play a role in this very File-centric comic, at least we're not dragging our feet on what are they going to do with the Files. It is very ironic that the issue that caps off the arc of the Files is one of the shortest episodes because it's just kind of this issue.
Well,
it's been such a long time getting here. I liked parts of it. I liked Greg Capullo and Todd McFarlane on the art. Danny Miki did a fine job. I'm sure we could figure out which pages are which, but I don't know that we need to. We got a few great moments from Warzakowski. Decent issue. One that feels like trying to at least change which plates are kind of spinning.
I do feel like we're almost 50 issues in. I do feel like, as Todd says, he's pretty bad at getting to any sense of closure with any of the things that he's set up. And he's attempting to do it here. Unfortunately, that means he just has to take a character off the board because he needs to like get rid of that for now. I hope that doesn't sideline Sam and Twitch too much moving forward, because a lot of the stuff that they do, and also, I mean, obviously Spawn's going to find out that like it didn't work and like nothing came back to Jason Wynn, and like he's going to have to follow up on that, right? But I will say, as much as I'm happy to see something happen with the Files, like it's kind of anticlimactic. Like, actually, Jason Wynn found out that they found out about the Files, so he just pinned it on he pinned it on Chief Banks, and we're just moving on. Cool, kind of nothing happened. Yeah.
That's true, but it shows a little bit of Jason Wynn's power. Man, it's hard to say because like you're not wrong. You're not wrong that it does kind of end with a whimper more than a bang.
Wow.
Oh boy, that's not right. It ends in a it kind of just fizzles out the story.
Yeah.
Like it cuts off that plot line. It ends with Jason Wynn just being like, well, and then I fixed it all for myself.
And also, I do think that the intent of the ending is to be like, whoa. But it doesn't really hit that way
Doesn't quite
because
have that.
one, we don't really care about Chief Banks.
No.
Two, we care about Sam and Twitch, but they've been pretty bad at doing this, and they could have. This is what Spawn asked them to do a bunch of issues ago, and they didn't do it, and then they did it, and kind of like nothing happened. So really, what should have happened is that they would have just done it initially, and nothing would have happened, and we could have wrapped this a lot sooner. But I'm not going to complain about a book that's 30 years old that we're not going to be able to change.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
anyway, I just think it's interesting that like Todd is definitely again at this time it's the longest running Image comic, right? It's cooking with gas, and he's definitely feeling. I think he's got to be feeling a little bit of the weight of that, and he's feeling fans saying like, "What are you doing? What's supposed to be happening?"
I think he's trying to close off some of these threads before he gets to 50, and he's on that race to 50. And I'm not sure if there's a reason that we've discussed and I forgot, but there's not necessarily a need to be blasting ahead to issue 50 right now. Like he doesn't have to do that.
What's going to happen? I mean, I've read ahead. I don't know how much you've read ahead, but there is a sort of like we're in 1996 right now. We're 4 years into the book, right? Issue 43. 12-ish issues a year. Pretty impressive. There is a sort of like reset in the 60s.
Right.
Where there's like a new jumping on point. We get some stuff contradicts stuff we've already read. So, because the Chapel stuff has to get written out, and 1997 happens, and Jessica Priest has to become a thing, and I think he's sort of like racing to it because in the grand tradition of superhero comics, big anniversary issues do allow you to set a new status quo. And so I think that's his initial thought.
Also big sales numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
I think maybe he's just pushing towards that to kind of get to the next chapter of Spawn earlier because he spent so much time spinning wheels.
Yeah.
Just with plates in the air spinning.
And I do think
endlessly.
That having like the two art teams is just, I think it's also a way to keep an artist in his back pocket. Right?
Yeah.
If something were to happen where Greg Capullo goes back to Marvel or Tony Daniel goes back to Marvel, he's still got Greg Capullo, or vice versa. He's kind of hedging his bets on all of it. Like Image Comics universe is still pretty young, and you know it's expensive to run a company, and so I have to imagine that a little bit of it is like, I like these guys, I want to keep them employed. How do I keep them employed? Well, let me just do double the amount of issues. So.
And I don't have a problem with it.
No.
I mean, in hindsight, it's fine. Especially, we're not trying to buy it every 2 weeks as it comes out. I guess as fans, so monetarily, that was probably an issue for some people.
Yeah.
Who
but also too, would you rather buy one issue at $4, right, or like $3.50 or whatever, or keep buying the book at the same price it's been at $2, right, $1.95? Right. It's still not a very expensive book to this day.
No.
It's one of the cheaper comics that you can buy. And I think some people would argue that, well, that's reflected in its quality.
But I think that's unfair to say. Yeah. I don't think the cover price reflects quality of workmanship.
Trust me, we've all read all the random Marvel relaunches and point ones and number 1000 and this and like, all of its gimmicks and nonsense.
DC does all these prestige Batman books that are all, there's a lot of them, you know? So that's not the point. The point is, though, that in hindsight, in retrospect, I don't have a problem with it. It doesn't make it read that poorly, especially if you know what's going on. You know? So,
and I think an issue like this gives us those kind of more poetic passages. We maybe breeze through them a little bit, but like those more poetic passages, both in art and writing, where like Do I think like Todd McFarlane's Shakespeare? No, but like he'll give you some good lines once in a while, and they're really cool.
Well, he finally did the thing that I've kind of been hoping he would do, and we've said it a few times, I think, where in this issue, instead of giving Sam and Twitch 2 or 3 pages in the next like 10 issues to get to this, he just did 22 or
Yeah.
20 pages of Sam and Twitch just getting to this, just doing this story. And it was fine to have the diversion. It was fine that Spawn was only in the one page
Mhm.
because, especially if you're reading in order and you're keeping up with Spawn, I think the idea of like, if you're in this universe at this point, you're trying to get these stories told, having a story that kind of diverts from the main POV for one issue, that's a long standing tradition in comics,
Totally.
and it's fine. It worked. For that reason, I thought it was kind of a breath of fresh air to just be like, okay, yeah, great, let's get to this story. Let's just do this story instead of having like the 2 pages of Sam getting ready and we find out that the case was pushed. And then in another issue, the 2 pages of them getting fired by Chief Banks.
Yep.
And then in another issue, and so on.
Yeah, 100%. I think that this would have helped with so many of the plot lines that we've seen so far to just actually dedicate an issue or two to them. Now,
Yeah.
do I really need like a full issue of like Wanda and Terry's marital situation? No, that probably
not unless something spectacular happens to make it a really interesting issue.
Right. And like, so I think that the flip side is that the flip side of this approach is like, if Todd hones in on the wrong characters, then you get an issue where you're like, oh boy, right?
Yeah.
Thankfully, that hasn't really happened. There aren't that many characters.
Right.
But, I'm kind of with you on this. Overall, this issue is fine. It does its job.
Yeah.
And it gives us kind of one less thing to have to worry about. Not that we were worrying about this specific file, but it does move the plot forward.
We'll see if we're moving on from the age of the files. You know what I mean?
Never.
It's become a meme for us, obviously, because it comes up so much, like all these files. It just feels like maybe this is also opening the door to a new age of files. So we'll see.
More files. Well, eventually they'll be digital. So
the digital files, the files are in the computer.
Yep. Anything else you want to add, George? I feel like we're pretty much wrapped on this one.
Yeah, no, I think I did like, in theory, the idea of following Sam and Twitch, so I hope I know they get their own series and stuff later on.
Prime Michael Bendis.
I would like to see them. Yeah, I'd like to see some more of that in the main series, so we'll see.
Cool. Well, George, where can you be found if you want people to find you?
You can read my writing every ding dong day at newsarama.com. You can find my social media. I'm really only on Blue Sky, and I'm not that interesting. At Crypt Trash. And yeah, that's it this time.
Cool. Yeah, you can find me at PE Lightning on various places, at laps.punk on various places. But you can find the show, more importantly, at Spawnography or at Spawnography Pod, depending on the platform. July, I was pretty bad about posting things. So hopefully by the time this comes out, I'll be better at posting things.
I'm trying to be a better poster, I swear.
Feel free to rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you to everybody that has. If you write a little review on like Apple Podcasts or whatever, and you can leave comments now on Spotify, feel free to do so and we'll read them if they're nice. We won't read them if they're mean, unless they're mean and we want to make fun of you for being mean to us. But probably we won't read them if you're mean. So don't be mean. Don't be mean to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is who you're being mean to and you're mean to me, the host of this podcast.
Well, George, for Todd so loved the world,
he gave his only begotten Spawn.
See you next week, Hellspawn.